Hey, let me just start by setting the record straight on something. Henry Selick is the visionary stop-motion director that did Nightmare Before Christmas, not Tim Burton. I know Tim Burton has done other stop-motion stuff, and he actually wrote the poem that Nightmare was based on, but pretty much all of the creative direction and influence was from Henry Selick. So let's give that guy the praise he deserves, please. Hi everybody, Anthony here from Awesome Anthony Productions, and today we're going to be talking about visionary director Henry Selick's latest stop-motion film, Wendell and Wild. But before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe. Make sure to ring the bell so you never miss any of my content. You can also scroll down to the description and find the links to my TikTok and my Instagram. Let's get into it. Wendell and Wild focuses on Kat, voiced by Lyric Ross, a young orphan who occasionally has what she thinks are visions from the future, who is sentenced to go to an all-girls Catholic school, while all the while, two demons from down below, Wendell and Wild, voiced by who else? Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele, are plotting to be summoned back up to Earth and raise money to build an amusement park of sorts, which actually leads into something pretty cool. The devil in this, Belzer, voiced by the incomparable Ving Rhames, actually has kind of like an underworld that's like a carnival set up on his stomach, but every single ride is like torturous in some way. It's pretty cool. So yeah, Wendell and Wild are trying to build their own theme park, and they need to, I guess, get to the surface and be summoned by what they call a Hell Maiden, and Kat is their Hell Maiden. And I guess if they get up to the surface, then they can raise their money somehow. Oh, and there's also an evil corporation, Clax Corp, that's trying to bulldoze the Catholic girls' school and make way for their own, like, private prisons, I guess. If that sounds complicated, then trust me, I haven't even gotten into it yet, because the plot is so convoluted in this film, which is really a shame because the animation is absolutely beautiful, as it is with almost all stop motion that we see nowadays. There is so much attention to detail. The characters, some of them have pretty ugly designs, but they're animated so lifelike and so beautifully in their own cartoonish way that it draws you in, honestly. And there are so many little horrific things and gross out things in here that you don't expect to see from stop motion, which this was actually rated PG-13, which I thought was pretty cool. Gives it a little bit of a step up from things like Coraline or something like that in terms of maturity. So that was pretty cool to see that kind of stuff in a stop motion film. But unfortunately, with those designs and animation and everything come the characters, and there are a lot of characters in this movie. There's Kat, there's Wendell and Wild, there's Belzer, there's the head priest voiced by James Hong, who actually does a great job. There's a few nuns, there's friends, there's like dozens of characters in this movie. And none of them really get developed at all. And frankly, the main character, Kat, she's kind of just unlikable for a lot of the movie. She's mean to everybody, she has a chip on her shoulder, understandably so, but the movie doesn't really do enough to make you sympathize with her. She's just kind of mean, and then eventually at some point in the movie she experiences some growth, kind of out of nowhere. That being said, she does have the most characterization out of almost everybody in the movie besides Belzer and Wendell and Wild, who are the standouts of this film, but I'll get to them later. And her friend Raoul, who apparently is supposed to be like the main supporting character here, is really a nothing burger too. Honestly, it kind of seems like Raoul, who is a trans boy by the way, kind of seems like they just put that in the cast to check off a diversity box, which I have no problem with, but it wasn't written well. They didn't give Raoul any development, really. He was just kind of there, and just there to like do things whenever the plot called for it, which isn't really a good character. And if we want representation like that, then I feel like it should be given more than that. Let me pedal it back a little bit to the story, because this story is all over the place and very convoluted. I didn't know until after I watched it that it's based off a series of books, and it makes sense because it honestly feels like they took multiple books and crammed it into one like hour and 45-minute movie. And it's obvious because plot threads come and go. There's loose ends all over the place. There's so many characters, like I said. Things drop in out of nowhere into the story and become important plot elements within like a minute and a half. There's just so much to hold on to that it honestly drags on for a little bit. Besides the amazing opening and pretty good third act, the second act drags so much. I found myself checking Netflix over and over again just to see how much time I had left, which is really a shame, especially when you pair it with the gorgeous hand-done animation here. Also with the story, there's way too much of a focus on the themes and the message instead of actually just telling a simple, good story. Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas worked because they had simple messages, pretty much both boiled down to be careful what you wish for. They stuck to that simple story, that simple message, they focused on the main character, and the films were very easy to follow and all the more exciting for that. This one bounces all over the place with the convoluted plot and a huge cast of characters, and they bring in themes and messages and kind of poorly veiled political allegories, and those just feel very out of place and fall flat on their face. And if they would have been handled a little more subtly like other movies have done, and like Coraline and Nightmare did before with their message, it probably wouldn't have felt as ham-fisted and not taken away from the story as much, which was already packed to the brim to begin with. Though I will get to some positives here in that, I know I already mentioned this, but Wendell and Wild are the stars of this film.
What are you doing in my dream?
We are Wendell and Wild.
Who?
I know you're probably thinking, duh, of course they're the stars, they're the title of the film. Well, not really. They're not in that much of it, maybe 20-25 minutes at the most, and most of the story is focused on Kat. But whenever Wendell and Wild are brought in, of course voiced by Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key, like I said before, they're hilarious. They play off each other just as we know they can do so well from Key and Peele, and even from something like Toy Story 4, there's a lot of that energy with those two characters. But they have a great rapport, they have some really funny slapstick humor, they have some dark jokes that they play off each other, and they have an important role in the story. And anytime that they were on screen, I was either laughing or just watching them, waiting to see either what gross things they would do or what funny jokes they would come up with. The film really just comes alive whenever they're on screen, especially when it comes to the animation, because the animation in the underworld is amazing, especially on Wendell and Wild and Belzer. He's basically their version of the devil with the big carnival on his stomach, but I mean, it's Ving Rhames. Of course he has a great voice, and the character design and animation on Belzer is pretty awesome too, and he has an amazing set piece later in the film that causes the film to come alive right before it ends. So that adds to the good third act, because I think I said earlier that the first act is admittedly kind of strong, with the opening and learning what happened to Kat's parents, and then the prologue that kind of sets up the Catholic school. I thought that was interesting. It dragged through the second act, but the third act got pretty exciting and the animation got ramped up again, and I loved it. But yeah, if it wasn't for the insane amount of story and slow burn reveal of all the plot points, that second act could have been a lot more interesting, and it could have carried through the whole film, and I would have liked it a lot more. Overall, the animation is the best part of this film, but that can't even fix the problems that the movie has. Though it's worth the watch for that, honestly. I mean, it's stop motion, it's Henry Selick. If you've seen Coraline, James and the Giant Peach, or Nightmare Before Christmas, you know what you're getting into. You're getting into some stunning backgrounds, characters, attention to detail. Your eyes will be moving all around the screen just looking for what you can notice. And even if you're not that into the movie, you might even be able to just scrub through and look at some of the beautiful animation. And there's even some stuff in the credits that show a little behind the scenes of one of the scenes too, which was pretty cool. I also really thought the score was great, and it added to the creep factor that was here, which admittedly, now that I think about the creep factor again, they didn't push it as far as they could have. It never really got that scary. It just kind of got gross and a little dark. I really was thinking when I was going into a PG-13 what I thought was going to be like another scary Henry Selick film, that it would have actually been kind of scary, so that was a little disappointing too. But like I said, the music is great, and the occasional tame horror and gross out stuff is pretty cool to see in a stop motion animated film. And I love the voice performances from Key, Peele, and Rhames. Lyric Ross does a good enough job too. I just didn't really like the main character all that much. So yeah, Wendell and Wild unfortunately has a lot of really cool ideas and sequences, but they don't really go anywhere, and they don't really give enough where it counts. You get through a emotional and cool opening to sit through a very, very boring, convoluted, and long, drawn-out middle, to get through an admittedly cool and very well animated but kind of rushed third act. And ultimately, the film was just kind of a letdown. So yeah, that's my review of Wendell and Wild. I can't really say much about whether I recommend it on theaters or whatever because it's on Netflix. If you like animation, if you like kind of creepy stuff, if you love Henry Selick and love stop motion, I would definitely check it out for that alone. But don't go into it looking for a great story or that great of a cast of characters. Alright, that's my review of Wendell and Wild. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Anthony from Awesome Anthony Productions, and if you like this review, then please go ahead and leave a like. Comment below and let me know what you thought, or if you saw the movie and what you thought of the movie. And while you're down there, you can also subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss any of my content. You can also find the links to my TikTok and my Instagram in the description below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next week for my review of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.